Lesson 4, the rise of modern data analytics. Look, today, data is now the most valuable asset that any person making or attempting to influence a decision can have, and we'll talk about that in this lesson. 5 important concepts, ideas that we will discuss. One is that the way brands have been interacting with consumers have certainly evolved over time, but look, it is the digital ad market that really makes the internet go. We'll discuss that. We will look back to 2005 when Procter & Gamble introduced the concept of a 3-step model of marketing, and we will detail the role of that concept in making sense of a consumer decision journey. We will also then discuss how, since that time, there's a tremendous amount of data that has been generated, and the opportunities for brands have grown significantly, which forces us to rethink that model. And Google here has introduced something that is called the 0 moment of truth, which will modernize that model. Finally, we will look at several influences that have really driven this explosive growth of data and created more opportunities for analytics in the market that we have today. The way brands have connected with consumers has changed pretty dramatically over time. In the 90s, we're talking about just being on the web, having a voice on the internet to connect with consumers. We then move in the 2000s into this period of mobile, where every consumer is carrying a mobile device, and that becomes a very important connection point for brands. Then, where we are today is this idea of machine learning and data privacy. It's sort of the yin and the yang of us having all that data and access to that very personal information. We use machine learning to find patterns that we couldn't otherwise, and yet the privacy concerns, the very real privacy concerns that are coming forward, are forcing us to take a very practiced and prudent approach to using that data. But regardless of where we are, it is the digital ad sales that really funds the internet. You don't have to look any further than this projection of what that market size is from 2018 through to the projections in 2022. We are talking about hundreds of billions of dollars in this market, transferring from brands to platforms to internet sites and publishers. All of that money is what funds Google, funds Facebook, funds YouTube, funds Instagram, allows us as consumers to use these products for free. It is because of the ad models that are generated, and the connection there to data collection and data analysis is inextricable. If we look back at the evolution of marketing and how digital has really transformed that, we can start here. Look, every marketer knows this person. It is their shopper. They have invested a tremendous amount of time understanding what they want, what they need, how they shop a category, what they think about, what's important to them, and what is not. In 2005, P&G came up with this idea that really codified that approach. They identified a couple moments that brands needed to win importantly. One was this idea of the first moment of truth, the other was the second moment of truth. The whole thing begins with a stimulus. There is something that a consumer sees that makes them interested in a product. It could be an advertisement. It could be the idea that they ran out of something that they want or some important household staple. It could be that the product they're currently using breaks. Whatever that stimulus is, a brand in P&G's idea then faces 2 critically important moments. The first is the first moment of truth. This is when a consumer is standing in an aisle choosing between your brand and your competitor's brand. To be successful, a brand must win that first moment of truth. The second is that when the consumer gets that product home and starts to experience it for the first time. Does it live up to expectations? If it does, that brand has now probably secured a customer for life. And for P&G, this was a critically important second moment of truth. But a lot has happened since then. This is a photo of St. Peter's Square in Rome. This is the installation of Pope Benedict in 2005. Fast forward just 8 short years to 2013, this again is St. Peter's Square. This is the installation of a second pope. And you can see very easily the differences in the consumer behavior of those two moments. Look, we found digital, right? And this is what led Google to introduce what they call the zero moment of truth. It is that time between the stimulus to the first moment of truth. Consumers have tremendous access to information. They have devices that they carry around that connect them instantly to others, instantly to data that they can use to help make a decision. It is what informs a consumer before they face that still critically important first moment of truth. And this period for us as analysts is when all that really rich, robust data is being created that we can use to make sense of the consumer journey or even try to influence them. It is messy. It is not linear. It is not straightforward. There's so much happening in this period of time. All these influences, all these data sources that consumers are using, hopping between traditional sources to digital sources, and on and on. As an analyst, though, we must strive to collect this data and find some way to make sense of it all. There's another interesting thing kind of happening at this period, and that I think is best demonstrated through some work by a man called Scott Brinker, who in 2011 sat down and wanted to categorize, really for the first time, this nascent, growing market that he termed marketing technology. These are the technology providers in the marketing space. When he first sat down and did that, he found 150 companies. And this was very important because for the first time, someone had provided those categories and really made them much more easy for people to understand. It was so important, in fact, that it became viral and quite a sensation. Scott Brinker was convinced to revisit his analysis a year later. And when he did that, the number of companies had now jumped to 350. Go back another year, 1,000. He goes back the year after that. Now the number had doubled to 2,000. In 2016, 3,500. In 2017, 5,000. 18, we're talking about 7,000 companies. And the most recent visualization that he did featured over 7,000 companies operating in this space. What that means is that there's tremendous data or value in the data, and there are a tremendous number of companies working in that space helping brands make sense of that data. Another influence in the rise of modern analytics is the role that FAMGA, Facebook, Apple, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, has played in this time, both kind of creating this market and certainly influencing it. I mean, you know, the struggles that Facebook has had with some of the data breaches that it's experienced is tremendously well documented. Apple, through the construction of their devices, has been making moves to ensure greater privacy there at the expense of many of its competitors, for sure. Microsoft has made a jump into social and understanding the value there in that platform by acquiring LinkedIn. Google has seen a tremendous amount of growth and change in its business model, as well as a number of threats that it's tried to deflect. And finally, Amazon is a tremendous heavyweight that through acquisitions like that of Whole Foods and others has had tremendous impact in this market. But we can't escape this time without looking more at data privacy. The primary regulations that we see out there, GDPR, the California Privacy Initiative, ITP from Apple, and ETP from Firefox, all have great import. We don't know exactly what they're going to mean yet for this industry. But if anything is true, these kind of regulations are striving to make consumers more aware of who's collecting data on them, in better, greater control of how that data is used, and giving them the ability to intelligently opt out of that data collection should they need. Very common sense and straightforward regulation, but still something that is influencing this industry quite a bit, and it's at this point still anyone's guess on which way the industry moves to react.